Greetings, friends. You're on Ruslan Belov's channel, and today we will thoroughly analyze the situation on Ukrainian territory as of November 19, 2025. A mass of extremely significant events occurred today, so I suggest we proceed to the overview without unnecessary delays. First, let me remind you, a large-scale, essentially international corruption scandal is rapidly gaining momentum in Ukraine. Dozens of high-ranking individuals are involved, people from the highest circles of the country's political and economic system. Every day, new information emerges that another official, politician, or major entrepreneur is secretly or openly leaving Ukraine's borders. As of the morning of November 19th, at least 4 and possibly 5 figures are known to have urgently emigrated. The first to fly out was businessman Mindij, who moved to Israel. Next to leave Ukrainian territory was Rustam Umarov, who headed to Turkey. The third on this list was Svetlana Grinchuk, Ukraine's Minister of Energy, whose name appears in several high-profile corruption investigations. After her, according to various sources, the country was left by Andriy Yermak, the fourth person among those who, according to press reports, urgently changed their location. Let me remind you, just yesterday, there was active discussion of rumors about a planned meeting between Yermak and Witkoff. The American representative was supposedly going to fly in to discuss with Yermak a number of issues concerning conflict resolution and possible proceedings on corruption episodes. However, after documents, audio recordings, and numerous leaks were released into the public domain, Witkoff cancelled the meeting. He completely refused to fly to Kiev. At the same time, information appeared that Yermak abruptly changed his plans and urgently departed for London, where he allegedly intends to meet with Valery Zaluzhny. While this hasn't been officially confirmed, such information is circulating. And of course, the fifth person who also left Ukraine today was and you won't be surprised, President Volodymyr Zelensky. Formally, on an official visit. But the fact remains, Zelensky arrived in Turkey today, and notably, he was personally met there by Umarov. It creates the impression that a face-to-face confrontation is essentially taking place in Turkey between two key figures. In closed offices, they may literally be brought head-to-head, demanding necessary explanations. The situation turned out to be revealing. If you look carefully at the footage of his arrival, Zelensky calmly descends the ramp, greets representatives of Turkish authorities, but there was a distinct pause in his handshake with Umarov. He lingered a fraction of a second longer than with the others. This was clearly noticeable, and it creates the feeling that precisely in that moment, in the exchange of glances and gestures, far more words were spoken than could be expressed aloud. Most likely the conversation was about unpleasant prospects. Thus, according to various sources, 5 key representatives of Ukrainian power structures are absent from the country today. Some officially, some secretly, some according to rumors. And all of them may turn out to be central figures in the high-profile anti-corruption case now unfolding in Ukraine. Simultaneously, the United States is disseminating its information. It became known that the American side has prepared a certain peace plan, consisting of 28 points. This document, according to media reports, was formed based on agreements between Putin and Trump reached at a meeting in Alaska. Today, the first American representative not connected with military structures arrived in Ukraine. He is to conduct negotiations with Ukrainian authorities on issues of possible peaceful settlement. We're talking about a special representative, U.S. Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, as well as Chief of Staff Randy George. They are already on Ukrainian territory, and approximately tomorrow, when Zelensky returns from Turkey, they intend to provide him with a complete list of conditions and points of the peace plan that the U.S. expects to be implemented. After meeting with Zelensky, both officials will travel to Moscow to discuss details and coordinate positions with the Russian side and special representatives of Vladimir Putin. That is, if we summarize everything said, it creates the impression that the conflict in Ukraine may indeed be approaching its end, and much earlier than many expected. But for now, let's move on to the situation on the front line. Let's start with the Zaporizhia direction, where the Vostok group of forces continues its offensive both toward Huliai-Pole and toward Velika Mikhailivka. New clarifications came from there today. This is what the map looked like on November 18th, and this is November 19th. According to Ukrainian cartographic services, Russian units entered Zaporizhia and consolidated in Vesele. A particularly interesting confirmation is video footage published by pro-Russian sources. It shows Ukrainian military personnel withdrawing from Zaporizhia under strikes from FPV drones and Russian armed forces artillery. This essentially indicates that within the next 3 days, the Russian army will almost certainly complete the clearing of Zaporizhia, Vesele, Zeleny High, and Chervonon. After this, we can expect the countdown to begin for Huliaipol itself. And it is precisely this critical situation on the front line that is pushing Western curators toward an accelerated search for a peace agreement, to avoid not just a media failure, but a real defeat on the battlefield, footage of which would inevitably circulate in all world media. Such a failure would weaken the West's negotiating position and sharply strengthen Russia's position. Western countries are now occupied not with prolonging the conflict, but with attempts to prevent further deterioration of the situation. Ukraine's economy and the situation at the front are deteriorating rapidly, essentially in geometric progression. If hostilities continue for even another month, the situation will change dramatically, and not in Kiev's favor. In the Velika Mikhailivka area, Russian troops have also improved their positions on the Tika, Velika Mikhailivka, Istopol line. The map has changed significantly in recent days. The Russian army is advancing from several directions and may soon force the river and enter the village itself. On the Novo Pavlivka sector, the changes are even more substantial. This is what the map looked like on November 18th, and this is November 19th. The Ukrainian side published a video recording, probably shot by fighters from the 42nd Mechanized Brigade, where FPV drone operators are trying to identify positions of Russian units. Geolocation was successfully conducted on one of the video fragments, and this confirms that the battle for Novo Pavlivka is close to completion. We can expect an announcement from the Russian Ministry of Defense about complete clearing of the settlement. This, in turn, will open up for Russian troops access to the Dnipropetrovsk operational expanse and a potential route toward Pavlohrad. Although, considering current political processes, such an offensive may no longer be necessary. On the Pokrovsk direction, the Russian side is maintaining and gradually tightening the ring around Mirnohrad, systematically striking VSU positions, especially in the eastern part of the city. Today, more and more objective control materials are coming from this direction, confirming that Russian units continue methodically working on Ukrainian positions in the multi-story buildings of eastern Mirnohrad, using heavy FAB-3000 aerial bombs. The scale of strikes is such that the eastern sector of the urban district is literally being leveled. They're simply trampling it with a series of precision and carpet strikes without striving to advance further. The front on this flank is not moving forward. They're simply leveling it to a state of clear strip. On the northern outskirts of Pokrovsk, small changes in favor of Russian troops are also being recorded. The map, which yesterday, November 18th, looked one way, is being corrected today based on new video materials published by the Ukrainian side. One such clip shows Ukrainian aviation delivering a bomb strike on Russian unit positions. Geolocation showed the point of impact, and it was precisely this episode that allowed the conclusion. Practically the entire northwestern zone of Pokrovsk is already under confident control of Russian forces. Now we move to the Siversk direction. It is here, apparently, that today's most significant change in the operational situation occurred, and the loudest map corrections. If you look at the front line display as of November 19th, it becomes clear. The Russian side has consolidated at least a quarter of Siversk's territory, completely occupying its southeastern sector. To see the dynamics, it's enough to compare with the map from November 17th. That's when the turning point in favor of Russian troops began. On that day, confirmation appeared of the complete clearing of Platonivka, which became a key event in the battle for Siversk. From November 18th, information began arriving about the capture of major strongpoints. And today, November 19th, the entire southeastern zone of the city is colored in based on 3 different video materials. Moving to the first clip. It shows Ukrainian military personnel withdrawing from the southern sector of Siversk, probably from Zvanivka, moving along the railroad. However, an attempt to change direction and move westward leads them straight under heavy fire from a Russian army machine gun position placed in a building opposite. A series of bursts covers the column. Several soldiers instantly become 200s, KIA. Part are seriously wounded. Some manage to escape into the forest belt east of the railroad. This episode showed the southern part of the city is already confidently controlled by Russian units. In the next video segment, Ukrainian fighters from the 54th Motor Infantry Brigade demonstrate work on Russian positions in the central sector of the Siversk area. One of the strikes was successfully geolocated between buildings precisely at this point, and this additionally confirmed the presence of Russian forces already in the central part of the southeastern quadrant of the city. But the most revealing footage is the last. Shot at the northernmost point of the southeastern district, it shows two Russian saboteurs who are absolutely calmly moving through Siversk streets from north to south. That is, they're operating in a zone where VSU defense is already essentially absent. All three episodes together give unambiguous understanding. The northeastern part of Siversk is already completely under tight control of Russian troops. This same picture is confirmed by both independent and pro-Russian cartographers. According to their data, the Russian side has already managed to clear almost the entire complex of defensive fortifications located east of the city. Taking into account all the incoming information, only one conclusion can be made: Siversk's days are numbered. The eastern part of the city, located beyond the Bakhmutka River and the railroad line, will inevitably come under control of the Russian armed forces before the end of 2025. Now to the Lyman direction. As of November 18th, the map looked one way, but today numerous clarifications are appearing. Russian units are advancing toward the T-0513 highway, expanding the control zone around Platonivka and Dronivka. Even pro-Ukrainian cartographers are forced to make serious corrections. According to their latest updates, the entire territory of the settlement Yampil is now considered a grey zone. This means VSU no longer hold stable positions. There, Russian forces also haven't yet completed clearing, but hold a number of key points. Almost the entire Lyman-Yampil forest has also transitioned into a grey zone, where Russian units are gradually increasing their presence. The situation on the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk direction, this is precisely what this sector is increasingly being called, for Ukrainian forces looks extremely difficult and is increasingly approaching critical. On the Kupiansk direction, there are no significant changes. On the northeastern approaches to Kharkiv, the situation also remains stable, although some cartographers note Russian force advances in individual sectors. On the Vovchansk direction, new clarifications appeared today. Additional information confirms Russian troops are completing the clearing of the southern part of Vovchansk, and most likely the Russian Ministry of Defense will officially announce in the coming days the complete liberation of the settlement. From here to Vovchansky Khutori, less than 4 kilometers remain, only 3.8 kilometers. Based on the pace of advance, this distance could be covered very soon. This concludes the overview. Thank you for being with me, dear friends. Subscribe to the channel, like, support the work, and until we meet again.